Hello, everyone. I'm Vance Ballard with the National Sports Media Association. Joining me today is ESPN Wichita 92.3 station manager, host of The Pulse with Pat Strathman. It is, and your 2024 Kansas Sportscaster of the Year, Pat Strathman himself. Pat, thank you for joining me. How are you today?
Vance, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for your time here today. It's been great getting a chance to learn about your background and how unique you are. So I just love the fact that that's the beauty of sportscasting, that there are many different ways to get started. We all don't start out as being radio junkies or wanting to be in the media, but sometimes it's just kind of our calling. That's where our heart takes us. So glad to see you be in this role. It's a pleasure getting a chance to speak with you.
Well, thank you. Like I said, a pleasure is mine as well. Touching on that, getting into this, the journey there. How long have you known or been interested in sports journalism? When did you know what kind of clicked for you that this was what you wanted to do? This was the field you wanted to be in?
Yeah. I think like a lot of people, you talk to a lot of the people in this industry and they would tell you that, yeah, when I was 7 years old, 8 years old, I was listening to whoever on the radio. For me, it was not that way. I wasn't that type of guy growing up. Now I'm a KU guy, so I did listen to Bob Davis quite a bit. I did listen to Royals games on the radio with my dad because he's a diehard Royals fan. And I didn't really decide to do sports journalism until the second semester of my senior year in high school. I entered that final year trying to decide what I wanted to do. Would it be civil engineering or would it be sports journalism? I know different parts of the brain, but that was
That
kind of
is,
where I was.
I'm sure
And
that's a
I
constant battle between a lot of people.
Yes, for sure. So I took two independent study courses. One was supposed to be for computer aided design, which would kind of steer me toward civil engineering, and then the other one was writing. And at the end of the semester, I said whatever I liked most, I'm going to go with that. And when I got to the end of that first semester is when I said, all right, I want to do this whole sports thing. I want to be a sports writer. So naturally decided to go to a wonderful journalism school at the University of Kansas. I'm one of four in my family to go up to KU. We had someone on that campus for 20 consecutive years. So we bleed crimson and blue in our house, which is weird because it's normally the other way in Seneca. There's a
Yeah.
lot of K State people in that area. But when I went to KU and decided to be a sports writer, I was like, all right, here we go. I'm going to go to KU. Got to campus, and there was a class, J101, that was the introductory course for all of the freshmen who wanted to be journalism majors. And I remember in that class, there's one day when we were talking about the different type of things that you can do: TV, radio, writing, whatever it might be. And we went down the line, and Professor Chuck Marsh was one who was leading the course. He mentioned something about radio and how radio never dies. And I just thought that was the coolest thing in the world. Like, man, radio never dies? That sounds wonderful, right? It sounds cool. But I still wanted to be a sports writer. Well, then another class takes place, and there was someone from the student run radio station that was speaking in front of the class, saying, "Hey, we're looking for people. If you need experience, hop in now." And I thought to myself, well, I can't be a sports writer for the University of Daly, Kansas. So I thought I needed to get some experience. So let's go ahead and take a look at it. So I ended up going to this meeting, and everyone in that meeting is going around the room saying what they wanted to do. And then it gets to me, and I say, I want to do sports. And everyone stopped and looked, and I'm like, did I say something wrong? And they're like, well, this is the news department, so you're in the wrong area. I'm like, well, sorry for wasting your time. But they were like, don't worry, there's a sports department, we'll get you in contact, whatever. Well, I walked outside the building at the student union, and I smelled pizza in the air. So as a freshman who wanted to eat as much free food as possible, I turned and looked to my
Absolutely.
right, and there was a group of guys that were having a slice of pizza, and I recognized one person from my orientation. So I walked over, and before I can grab one, a guy comes up and goes, Michael Spiro, KJHK sports director. And that's how I got hooked. It was really right then and there when I listened to them and listen to their pitch about how they can call games courtside Allen Fieldhouse, which of course is the mecca of college basketball.
That'll sell most
And
people right there.
yeah, so it sold me right then and there. But of course, you have to hustle, you have to grind. You don't just become a play-by-play guy right then and there. You have to pay your dues. And I was just hooked from that one day. So that one accidental meeting is what really sold me on being a part of this industry. So here I am. I graduated in 2013, and 12 years later, I'm still in the industry, which is crazy to think about, but certainly enjoying what I love. I'd love to do every single day.
Well, what do you know? Just like many great things in life, we have pizza to thank for Pat here with us today, being where he is.
Pizza reigns supreme. Just
That's
saying.
it. As always. So that's a little bit about how you got interested in being a sports journalist. Tell me a little more about your path and your journey to ESPN Wichita today, towards the station manager role you have now.
Yeah, very unique too, because as most people know in this industry, sometimes you have to make decisions to uproot your life and go to a state or a city that you've never been to. And when I was at that stage as a senior, I had some different options on the table. I looked into Nebraska, I looked into Minnesota a little bit, but it was an internship that I did with a radio company that has a station only 30 minutes away from my hometown in Hiawatha at KNZA. That internship actually led to a job opportunity. They created a job in Atchison, Kansas, a town of 10,000 people, home to Benedictine College. Actually was recruited to play football by Benedictine, ultimately decided to go to KU, which I'm glad I did, because obviously here I am doing things that I want to do. But Atchison was great. They hired me. They created a spot to be the sports director, do high school play-by-play, help out with Benedictine College sports coverage as much as I possibly could. And then after doing that for 8 months is when I got a phone call from Jake LeBon from 580 WIBW in Topeka, a heritage station with some incredible broadcasters to go through that radio station. And I did an internship with them when I was in college. And Bruce Steinbrock was the one who oversaw that. And Bruce was a longtime play-by-play guy for Washburn University, a Division II school in Topeka. And Bruce ended up going to do some other stuff, but Jake was also a part of that. And Jake remembered how hard I worked back then. I also was a part-time board operator. I did Saturday night at 10 o'clock to Sunday morning at 6 in Topeka. I know, glamorous life, isn't it?
Ouch.
I sacrificed
Wild Topeka nights.
some, yeah, I sacrificed some party time at KU so I can make sure I have my foot in the door, because I also helped out with their wall-to-wall state tournament coverage. And Jake called me and was like, "Hey, I want you to be the voice of high school athletics. I want you to be a producer. I want you to fill in." So I hopped on that. And then later on is when Mark Elliott, who was the voice of Washburn, decided to step away. And Jake then was like, "Hey, what do you want to do? Do you want to do more sports talk? Do you want to do more play-by-play?" And I, of course, was like, "I want to do play-by-play. Play-by-play rocks. Let's do
Naturally.
that." So I helped out with Washburn basketball, did Washburn baseball as well. And I was a part of that for 2.5 years. And then I got a phone call from a buddy of mine, Mike Hammett, who is now the voice of Louisiana Monroe. At the time, he was in Salina as a sports director and the voice of Kansas Wesleyan in Salina. He notified me that he was going to go down to Weatherford, Oklahoma to be the voice of Southwestern Oklahoma State. I said, "Hey, that sounds awesome." He goes, "I want you to know that you're my guy. I want you to come in and be the replacement." So I ended up saying, "All right, cool, sounds great." When I was hired, my first week on the job was the first week of football. So I had to plan. I had to dive in head first. I didn't have much time to think. It was just go and do. And that's exactly what I had to do. And Wyatt Thompson, voice of K-State, I'll never forget. He goes, "You're going to look back on that week and you're going to laugh." I'm like, "I don't know. I'm pretty stressed out right now. I don't think it's going to happen." But of course, now I look back at it, it's pretty
Now you
funny.
do, yeah.
Yeah, so I did Kansas Wesleyan Athletics. I was doing high school stuff with Salina Central and Salina South. I did a 2 hour sports talk show up there called In the Zone. And I also was a sports director for 6 radio stations. So I did that for 5 years, and then I got wind of ESPN Wichita getting created in June of 2021, and a buddy in this market was like, "Hey, you need to poke around and see who owns it." And I come to find out that it is a part of a company that is very well known. Our sister station, Sports Radio 810 WHB, one of the greatest, if not the greatest, sports station in the country. I truly do believe that. They do incredible work. And that's when I got to the doorstep of the president, Chad Boger, who was looking to hire someone. So he ended up hiring me in October, did a 2 hour sports talk show right then and there, and then just some other stuff has really materialized since then. Now I do stuff for Wichita State Athletics. I help out with ESPN Plus. I help out with women's basketball. I help out with softball. I help out with men's basketball a little bit. I still help out Friends University and the IA school that's here in Wichita. I'm also a part of the K-State Sports Network. I actually help out being a fill-in producer for them too for football. So my plate is very full, but that's
Sounds
the
like it.
way I like it. And I love the fact that I can do multiple different things that can showcase my talents. And just to be a part of things is a blessing in this industry, as you know. So, long story short, I am a lifelong Kansan who is still in Kansas, which is kind of crazy because that doesn't happen too often. And I'm very, very thankful for the fact that I've been in a state that I've known for my entire life.
Right. Well, touching on that, that brings me to my next point. As you mentioned, you've been in Kansas all your life. What impact do you think that has on your job? Do you think you bring more passion, or do you feel like being in your home state, talking about your home state sports, does that have an impact on your job? And off that, do you think if you had taken one of those other roles, Nebraska, Oklahoma, something like you mentioned earlier, what would that look like in terms of your desire for sports and sports coverage?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I think the answer is yes. I'm already a guy who is passionate. I think a lot of people would tell you that I'm passionate about what I do, passionate about people who are in my life, and I care for them so deeply, and I will fight for them and everything. So I think, yeah, I think it's really made a big impact because I've never actually had to steer away from Kansas athletics. I was always paying attention to everything that was going on in the state, and that ranges from high school athletics all the way up to the state schools like Kansas and Kansas State and Wichita State. I think it really has helped me, and it's definitely made a big impact. And really too, when you think about it, being able to do multiple things at multiple levels. To me, I'm still this small town Kansas boy from Seneca, Kansas, who graduated from Nemaha Valley, now Nemaha Central. They consolidated with Baylorville B&B. And I've always had a passion for high school, and I've never really stopped paying attention to high school athletics. Even the fact I was doing stuff for college, I never stopped looking at scores and trying to
Yeah,
see what's going on in the state of Kansas
always
from
go
a high
back to
school
that foundation.
perspective. I do stuff at the NAIA level. And so I know the KCAC real well. I know the Heart of America really, really well too. So if I ever have to touch on those subjects, I can. I Division two with the MIAA with Washburn. It helps the fact that I still am very much glued to the MIAA. So and JUCO wise, I've done some ESPN Plus stuff for the JUCO ranks. So when you take a look at those things, it's allowed me to stay connected here in the state. And had I gone somewhere else, would it have forced me to not pay attention quite as much? I don't